After differentiating into a beta for the second time, I proposed divorce to my longtime arranged marriage rival. He kept dodging it and even stayed away from the house we shared for a long time. I couldn't take it anymore. At a family banquet, in front of everyone, I brought up the issue again. 1. Before anyone could answer, I got slapped hard by the alpha's mother. She said, "Even if you're joking around, you have to know the occasion. Talking about this in front of the in-laws and so many people, do you think that's appropriate?" The slap was so hard my head rang. Harrison quickly caught me from behind so I wouldn't fall backward onto those fancy but useless pastries. Like I was shocked by electricity, I pushed him away. People noticed, and everyone's expression turned sour. Logan's dad rushed over, put his arm around my shoulder, and softly asked, "Did we upset you by constantly pushing you to have a baby? It's okay, just focus on these few years." I jerked my hand away. "Stop talking." When I looked up, my eyes were bloodshot. Harrison seemed to realize something. He stepped forward, grabbed my hand, and tried to pull me outside, while apologizing to the elders. "Sorry, Dad, Mom. He's been upset with me these past few days." But I stood still, frozen. Look at this kid, still so lively at his age. Mrs. Grace clinked her glass with Harrison's dad's, saying, "Kids don't understand, don't take offense." Then his family said, "No way. Casper has been with us 6 years, we already treat him like our own." I couldn't bear hearing this. Once again, I shoved Harrison hard toward the door and ended up falling badly myself. As I fell, I instinctively grabbed a beautiful sculpture nearby. The base wasn't secured well, and it shattered loudly beside me. I was stunned, sitting there dumbfounded. Dad hurried over to pull me up. Harrison squatted down, checking if I was hurt. "Casper. Are you okay? Let me see. You're so careless. You scared me." I smiled bitterly and slowly got up. "Mom." I looked at the woman now full of anger, holding back a tremble, and asked, "What happened to the ivy I left here?" She was like a lit match hitting the floor, instantly ignited. "Casper, you must be crazy. Haven't been back for so long, and the first thing you do is talk divorce and ask about some damn plant. Do you even care about us, your parents?" I held back my anger and just asked, "I just want to know, what happened to the ivy that used to be here?" "You." Logan grabbed her, releasing calming pheromones. "Calm down, talk nicely." We agreed the kid was finally back. "Just be patient." She stared at me for a long moment, caught her breath, and sneered, "It died." I threw the pot in the trash outside. Don't know where it ended up. I opened my mouth and struggled, "You all know Grandma left me that one thing." Harrison quietly said, "It's okay. I'll find it for you, and we'll replant it." He released alpha pheromones to soothe me, a scent like bamboo leaves gently wrapping around me like a hug. But soon he frowned, his expression strange. In the past, even though I wasn't close to him, when he released pheromones, because of our high alpha-omega compatibility, I'd at least release some subtle grassy scent in return, mixing with his. I said, "Feels weird, huh, Harrison?" He asked, "What's wrong, Casper?" But a warning bell rang in his mind, as if something painful was about to happen any second. His premonition was right. I pulled out a test report from my pocket. "I've differentiated again, I'm a beta. Our compatibility is 0 now." Ignoring the shocked eyes around me, I stayed calm like never before these years. I said, "Can we talk seriously about the divorce now?" 2. When did this happen exactly? Grace sat on the sofa, rubbing her temples, clearly very upset with me. But before the conversation, she had already been scolded by her Omega, so she was willing to sit down calmly and talk. I held my cup, trying to draw some warmth from the almost empty tea. It started showing symptoms 6 months ago, and the full differentiation just completed recently. Beside me, Harrison immediately stood up, disbelief written all over his face. "How come you never told me about such a big thing?" His eyes were filled with both sadness and shock. I looked at him and said, you knew from the start that I only wanted a divorce. If you hadn't avoided me these past 6 months and had come back even once, you would have seen it. You would have seen an Omega in that spacious house, lacking alpha pheromone guidance for differentiation, helplessly clutching at their own glands. Until all the gland secretions had drained away during the differentiation fever, leaving the glands shriveled like a dried-up pot, finally turning into useless nodules. But you missed it all. Harrison turned away and took a deep breath. He looked utterly disappointed and said, "You know, you want to divorce me. Casper, what did I do wrong? Can you please tell me? Don't skip over all the communication in between and jump straight to the end." Logan and Harrison's mother joined in persuading me, "Yeah, can't you talk things through properly? Harrison's always steady. Maybe there's some misunderstanding." Grace, seeing I didn't respond immediately, snapped, "Speak up. I want to see who among us wronged you, for you to want to destroy our family like this." I shuddered instinctively and gritted my teeth hard. I said, "Because from the very beginning, it was wrong. I never wanted to get married. You're completely out of line." Grace exploded, and before anyone could react, she slapped me hard again. Then, trembling, she pointed at me. A flash of regret quickly covered by a show of sternness. "Harrison matches you 96%. You grew up together, and all these years we've treated you well. What are you dissatisfied with? Are you just rebelling against your family? Have you lost your conscience completely?" I tried to force a smile, but it only made me look more tragic. Unexpectedly, I slapped her back. The sharp sound of the slap echoed, and Grace seemed stunned. "You dare hit me?" Logan rushed over, grabbing Grace's hand while scolding me, "Casper. How can you treat your mother like that?" I asked her, "Does it hurt?" "No, it doesn't hurt, because I used to be an Omega, and now I'm a Beta just past differentiation. I don't even have a tenth of your strength. You can't understand the pain of being slapped and kicked in public. So you can call me heartless, call me rebellious. Mom, you never asked me if I wanted this, if it hurt me." Grace didn't struggle, afraid of hurting Logan, so she just glared at me fiercely. "Can parents be wrong? What's good for you? Use your brain and think." I smiled bitterly. What's good for me was forcing me to change my major, making me study gardening I didn't care about. What's good for me was on my 20th birthday, when my friends were celebrating, you dragged me to the Civil Affairs Bureau to get married. Harrison's mother stroked my arm, exchanged a glance with Harrison's father, and asked softly, "Casper, maybe we were too anxious, wanting you to settle down early, but over the years, have you really never felt our love for you? Casper, did we do something wrong? It's not that." I took a few steps back. "It's not one thing." Tears welled up in my eyes before I wiped them away roughly. "I know you care about me, but it's different. The grievances I carry can't be erased by any kindness outside. It's like robbing Peter to pay Paul." Mrs. Grace was still angry. Seeing me so stubborn made her even more furious, so she called a few bodyguards. "We've tried talking nicely, but you don't listen. Then you're going to be grounded to reflect." Since the slap, Harrison had been standing between me and Grace, and now protected me even more firmly. "No. Casper's afraid of the dark. She can't be locked up. Mom, everyone calm down. I'll take Casper back first. I promise I'll talk to him properly." I looked at those bodyguards dressed in black suits with earpieces, so cold and unfeeling. They were another generation of elders, the same ones who'd been around since I was a kid. Even if there were new recruits, they had to be trained by the veterans first. The training was about being responsible, so they never opened the door for me. Even when I curled up in the dark storage room, miserable, none of them showed any mercy. I stepped forward, stumbled a couple of steps, and rushed up to the top floor. 3. Harrison chased after me, shouting, "Casper, don't run." I felt like something was chasing me, and hearing his voice only made me run faster. In a few strides, I scrambled up to the attic. Sure enough, those bodyguards were right behind me. Then 2 pairs of parents and the housekeepers showed up. It was the Dragon Boat Festival, and it had rained before dinner. Holding onto the balcony's flower pillar and ignoring the slippery floor, I climbed up onto the roof. Just like when I was a kid, doing it only to find the doll hidden on the roof. That lousy doll was a leftover defective toy I bought from a street stall. When I got home, Grace immediately hated it and threw it away right in front of me. I rescued it, secretly hid it on the roof, carefully sheltering it from wind and rain, visiting it whenever I missed it. But eventually, the doll was found, broken apart, and thrown in the trash. Just like me, no matter how much I try to escape, they still manage to climb up after me. The broken pottery shard I held still helped. Don't come any closer. I pointed at my neck. One more step and I'll stab. They clearly didn't take me seriously. So I turned and slashed hard across my own arm. The shard's corner was very sharp, and since I was originally an Omega, my skin was thinner. The cut made blood pour out immediately on my pale arm. From the balcony below, they could see the roof, and I heard Logan scream, clutching the railing and crying, "Please don't scare Dad, Casper, I'm begging you. Everyone get down here now." Grace shouted, pointing at the leader. The bodyguards exchanged looks and then slowly went back down the same way to the balcony. Harrison was nearly losing it. Ignoring his parents, he climbed up, standing not far from me. He wanted to soothe me with pheromones but remembered our compatibility was now 0, so his eyes reddened as he handed me his handkerchief. "I know you don't want to see me, but your hand might get infected. Don't you like painting? If you mess up your hand, that won't be good." I didn't take it. Instead, I moved toward the roof edge, pulling a tie out of my pocket and roughly tying the wound myself. "Casper, if something's bothering you, just tell me. Let me handle it, okay? I promise, worst case, I'll quit my company." Harrison's voice was soft, careful not to disturb even a butterfly on a branch. I asked, "You knew from the start I didn't like you, right?" He nodded, "Yes." "Then why? Why marry me?" His eyes were bloodshot, fists clenched tightly. "Because I like you, Casper. I was naive, thinking after we married, you'd have more chances to like me too." But he didn't expect I'd hate him so much that I resisted the pull of pheromones. His voice trembled. "I was wrong, Casper. I shouldn't have forced you to marry someone you didn't like." I laughed, tasting tears. "Go downstairs and sign the papers." After much inner struggle, Harrison gave up and said, "Okay. Then it's settled. We'll be witnesses. You all come down first, okay?" Looking down at them below, pale from blood loss, I whispered hoarsely, "Why do you have to push me this far?" Grace stared into my eyes, unable to understand. "Have we really done anything wrong to you? You've always had the best clothes and food, and even the path ahead was paved for you. Yet you threaten your parents like this. Is that really your intention?" I forced a bitter smile, tears rolling again as I waved the tie in my hand. "Look. This was supposed to be a gift for you. Now I can't even give it. When I was little, I stained one of your ties. You hugged me and said it was okay, and that when I earned money, you'd buy me many more. But why, now that I'm grown, have you taken away my chance to earn money, making me choose an unimportant major and settle down at home to support my husband and raise kids?" Images echoed in my mind. How after the college application deadline, she told me she changed my choices. How she and Logan converted my art studio into a piano room, saying I should practice music to have something in common with Harrison. How they forced me to keep my phone volume on, demanding I answer immediately when they called. How they arranged my pregnancy without consulting me, even sending a resignation letter to my workplace on my behalf. It felt like ever since I differentiated into an Omega, my life was split in two. I said, "Even if you treat me this way, shaping me into what you want," I never complained, until now, when I finally speak out what I want. Have I not done enough? I always thought I hated them, but every time I looked into their eyes, hope flickered, even if it was brief like a bubble. Someone later told me that wasn't hate. It was love so painful it hurt. Harrison said, "Casper, don't cry. He wanted to hug me but hesitated, stopping in place, not daring to take a step forward. I clenched the pottery shard tightly, stamping my words on the ground. I don't like you all anymore, so I won't put up with you anymore. I saw my parents tremble but frown and pretend not to care. I'm 26 years old. I hate tomatoes and fish. They say tomatoes make you pale and fish plump, but I just find them gross. And desserts too. I never want mom to come to parent-teacher meetings for me. I hate music because I'm naturally tone deaf. The person I hate most is Harrison. He's my lifelong enemy. What I hate most are kids. I don't want to have any and never can. In physiology class, the teacher said it's painful and might even kill Omega women. I don't want to die. A heavy drop of water hit my hand. Was it raining? I looked up, the sky was dark, the moon fuzzy and hazy. In the next moment, the whole sky went silent for me, dim and empty. I heard Harrison running toward me and the shouts of the two sets of parents below. Casper! Hurry, he's falling. 4. This time when I fell, I landed on the garden shed they had prepared for me. The old glass and iron frame cracked, smashing a flower. I broke one leg and fractured my right arm. After surgery, I lay in the hospital bed while doctors and Harrison spoke quietly just outside the door. The doctor reviewed my x-rays and test reports, sighing deeply. The surgery was successful, but you need to be prepared mentally, he said, pointing to where the limb was reattached. The nerves are connected, but we can't guarantee there won't be numbness or joint issues later. Harrison pressed, Doctor, isn't there any other way? He loves painting, he really can't lose that arm. Hearing this, Grace and Logan stiffened, seeming to age before my eyes. The garden shed they built for me became the executioner of my hopes. His parents silently patted their friend's shoulder, saying nothing. The doctor lamented, We'll do our best, but you know the patient's willpower is lacking. If someone loses the will to move forward, they don't stay put, they get stuck in the past. I will arrange a joint consultation with psychology and differentiation departments. Please stay in the ward this afternoon and spend more time with him. After the orthopedic doctor left, sobbing could be heard. I looked out the window. It had been raining these days, the drizzle annoying. The two sets of parents tried every way to bring different kinds of porridge, but left it by the bedside to cool again. The differentiation doctor arrived early. He brought the pheromone test report and examined my glands again, frowning sternly. What kind of family are you? His gland secretions are completely drained, do you know that? No one answered. With a dry voice, I said, I didn't tell them. The doctor scolded, nonsense. Do you know that if you hadn't survived the differentiation fever, or injected yourself with inhibitors, you could have died directly? It was like water spilling from a brimming cup. Once the edge is broken, it pours out uncontrollably. I said, I know. I never took inhibitors. Once I felt the fever coming, I threw away all inhibitors and locked myself in the house. To be honest, over the years I felt less and less like an Omega. Now, this is fine. I wasn't as miserable during differentiation, I got through it. The differentiation doctor fell silent, staring at me for a long time before asking, Your glands have turned to nodules and will be broken down by your body. You will become a beta. Will you regret it? I said, I won't. I didn't notice the expressions around me, probably anger. I thought I heard teeth grinding. The psychology doctor came then. She was a gentle elderly woman. She greeted the differentiation doctor, took the report, and looked up at me. She asked, What's your name? I'm not familiar with this character. I didn't answer. Miss Grace spoke for me, Casper. The psychologist smiled and interrupted, reaching out her hand to me, I want to hear it from him. Family, please wait outside for a moment. Logan hesitated but left with the others, frequently glancing back. Harrison was last, his eyes full of unspoken words, as if he already knew the answer. He tried calling me, Galen. I looked up and met his gaze, serious, tolerant, clear, just like the young man he used to be. Harrison seemed broken, lost, and fled the ward. Only the two doctors and I remained. They exchanged a look, puzzled by Harrison's reaction. The psychologist smiled again and asked, "What would you like me to call you?" I hesitated, then said, "Galen. My grandmother gave me that name." 5. After the consultation, the doctors gathered the family in an empty meeting room for a briefing. No one looked relieved. The heavy atmosphere stretched beyond the windows, turning into a dark, oppressive sky. The differentiation doctor spoke first. "Based on blood and marrow tests, the outlook is grim. His pheromones and receptors have completely vanished. In this state, his original alpha cannot calm him with pheromones anymore. During this healing stage, it felt like I was trapped on a deserted island. It's all up to him now," the doctor said. Logan's heart clenched. "What can we do?" "Take good care of him. The medical team will do their best and let you know what treatments to use." The psychologist tapped the table, serious. "Let me say something bold." Harrison looked up, suddenly alert. "This young man isn't without a will to live. He just doesn't have that will in this identity. My preliminary diagnosis: post-differentiation depression and gender dysphoria." "What does that mean?" someone asked. She explained, "First, the massive hormonal changes during differentiation cause temporary depression, leading to many behaviors you don't understand, self-harm included. Second, psychologically, he doesn't identify with his gender. He doesn't see himself as an Omega. We suspect his secondary differentiation relates to this. Usually, secondary differentiation only changes pheromone levels, not gender identity. Also, in conversation, he insists he's always been a beta. He says he was misdiagnosed initially, and this is who he really is. That's why he hides the differentiation and wants to be a beta again. He refuses to go by Casper, only Galen, the name his grandmother gave him. I'm curious, how did the family raise him this way?" No one answered. Grace finally retorted angrily, pretentious. "Haven't we been good to him? And now he acts like we abused him. He's an Omega. What else could we do? We're here now, what about later? We raised him, gave him a good home so he won't be alone in the future. Did we do wrong?" The doctors had no reply. The psychologist seemed resigned. "I've prescribed medication, but if you really want him to get better, I have one suggestion: let him go. That's all for now." After signing the medical family communication records, the doctors left first. Both families sat in the empty room in silence. Logan suddenly asked with reddened eyes, when his name was changed, did he know what to call himself? "Did you ask him? Do you need his approval to name him?" Grace scoffed, but her voice was hollow. "When I was born, the family's business hit trouble. Logan was focused on his alpha, so I was left at my grandmother's. Grandma named me Galen. After the problems cleared, they took me back but disliked the name, too light, like a feather easily blown away. That wasn't wrong. I once felt lucky for my precious name. But what changed later? I can accept pain, only if I never tasted sweetness." Harrison suddenly said, "Let him go." Grace rarely looked at him harshly and asked, "You mean I should throw my child out to fend for himself, no matter what happens? But can he survive here?" Harrison whispered, "I caught him before he fell. I caught him." He murmured again. "He let go of my hand." Silence fell. After a long moment, Grace took her Omega and left. The two families parted bitterly. 6. My recovery was very slow. A month later, they brought me back home. They installed thick stainless steel mesh over my windows. The gardening room that used to be visible from upstairs was completely uprooted, leaving only an ugly patch of grass. I sat in a wheelchair, forbidden from going up to the attic, and someone always had to watch over me. At first, it was Logan, but the moment I saw him, I didn't call him Dad anymore. I covered my ears and closed my eyes. Then I said, "I don't want to have children." I guessed he was going to say something about preparing for pregnancy. He always believed it was an Omega's duty to start a family. I'd argued before, but by then I'd given up. Logan cared for me for 2 days, then someone else took over. When Grace entered my room, she looked a bit nostalgic. She looked at the photos on my wall, from age 1 to 16. The traces of youth were touching, but soon she froze. There were no photos of me after 16. She flipped through my bookshelf and found a stack of photo paper at the bottom. Just as she was about to grab them, she remembered to ask me, "Can I look?" I sat by the window with my back to her and barely nodded. Grace looked through them one by one. My smile faded more and more in each photo. The last two had tear stains on them. One showed me turning away, holding back tears at the university gate, clutching my acceptance letter for horticulture. The other was from when I turned 20 and married Harrison. At the wedding, everyone was cheering for the newlyweds to kiss. I kept my eyes shut tight as a tear rolled down my cheek, falling onto my clenched fist. After that, there were no more photos. It was like she'd been burned. Photos slipped from her hands as she gasped and quickly left my room. After that, it wasn't Harrison who came, it was my house arrest quietly lifted. The nanny pushed me out to sunbathe in the yard, and only then did I realize it. But I stayed indifferent. That day, passing the patch of grass where the gardening room used to be, I looked up instinctively and realized how high I'd fallen from. Not happy. Then maybe we should go back first, little mister. Happy? At that moment, I suddenly remembered something and asked, "You all heard it, right? Harrison promised me a divorce?" The question was bold, the nanny hesitated, clearly uncomfortable. "Speak, talk to me." I grabbed her, refusing to let go. Logan suddenly appeared, holding me and calming, "Okay, it's all right." "Dad, did you all hear it? Harrison promised me a divorce." My eyes were red, I wouldn't stop until I got an answer. Logan said, "Don't say nonsense, Casper. How could you divorce? Where else will you find such a good alpha? Calm down." It felt like a bucket of cold water poured over me, a chill rose from inside. I gradually recovered, apologized, and let people leave first. I made a mental note to have the butler send her compensation later. I became silent again and ignored whatever Logan said. Until Harrison came. He brought a special invitation. It was a reunion invitation from high school classmates. I hadn't been to any gatherings for years and didn't expect they still remembered me. I asked Harrison, "What's this about?" He said, "If you want to go, go. After that, we can talk about this properly, okay?" I heard him call out with a soft laugh, "Galen, go check it out." Just like he used to always call me. I agreed. 7. The reunion came quickly, or so I thought. Actually, it had been half a month. They said I was coming, but when I really stood at the door of the private room, a sudden wave of shame and insecurity hit me. But I had no time to hesitate, someone came out the door and locked eyes with me. He slapped himself hard, then threw open the door and shouted, "Galen's here." My surprised expression quickly turned to panic. Without a word, they lifted my wheelchair and carried me inside. Then I felt someone roughly tousle my hair and someone else grab my face and squeeze it. Once I was set down, I was surrounded by people. They stared at me closely and then, like pressing a button to talk to a pet, shouted, "Say something." My mouth twitched and I said naturally, "Stop calling me Dad." They froze for a moment, then burst out laughing. "Shut the door. It really is Galen, no running this time. You sneaky kid, haven't visited us in years. Are you still a good son? Yeah, later we're going to get you drunk. Go away, can't you see he's injured? You said you'd drink for Galen later." I watched the noisy group and finally let out a chuckle. I said, "Screw you all." They pushed my wheelchair to the table and started sharing updates. Someone naturally cleared my things and even asked before putting food in front of me if I liked it. Though it didn't matter, they quickly grabbed everything anyway. I joked, "Just eat it, you greedy boys and girls." They laughed mischievously, probably loosened up by a few drinks. My tablemate lifted me up and swapped out my wheelchair. The class president said, "Let me play with this, I'll return it when it dies. Someone who was slow to grab it was teased for being unfair. She rode the wheelchair out, leading the others and leaving space for me and my tablemate. My tablemate Hunter recently differentiated into an alpha, he'd just had a couple of drinks. He spoke first, a bit cautious. "Galen, how have you been all these years?" I mumbled, "So. He quickly understood and said, "At first, we thought you didn't like us, so you never wanted to join reunions. Then the class president's Omega said she saw you at the hospital, you weren't doing well. We thought, no matter what, we had to get you here and ask what happened. You've lost a lot of weight, I could tell right away. Then why did you ask me just now?" I looked up, holding back tears. He got even more flustered and scrambled for tissues to hand me. "Sorry, we just wanted to see if we could help." I wiped my eyes, smiled, and said, "You already have. Today's the happiest day I've had in years." Hunter breathed easier and said, "That's good. If you ever need anything, tell us, okay? We're all on your side." I nodded but asked, "Why didn't you invite Harrison?" He frowned and scratched his head. "Isn't he your mortal enemy? Everyone knows that. Since this is our party for you, we definitely wouldn't invite him." "Everyone knows?" I asked, "Is it that obvious?" Hunter thought for a moment and said, "At first, you didn't seem to hate him that much, but over time, whenever he was around, you'd go silent, not say a word, like you wanted to be 8 kilometers away." I smiled helplessly and said, "Really?" "Ah!" Someone outside suddenly pushed the door open. My friends awkwardly came in, smiling at me and relaxing. The reunion ended. When saying goodbye, someone still tipsy said to me, "It's you like this that people like." I promised to keep in touch and waited for the driver at the end. Hunter and I waited, but it wasn't the driver who showed up, it was Harrison. When he came for me, Hunter was startled and immediately on full alert. I quickly tugged Hunter's sleeve and said, "It's fine, we've been married 6 years." Hunter seemed deaf and asked again, "What? Married to who?" I said, "Harrison. But we're divorcing soon." "I will divorce him. I'll tell you more later." Hunter could only hold back his questions and watched Harrison take my wheelchair from him and escort me away. The scene was strange, like two opposite poles glued together by superglue, waiting to snap apart at any moment. 8. On the way back, Harrison asked me, "Are you happy, Galen?" For once, I showed him a calm face and replied, "Yeah, I am." The class president and the others heard I was in the hospital last time, so they decided to hold this reunion to check on me. "I'm really glad." He smiled and said, "That's good." The light turned red, and the car stopped at the intersection. "They all know I don't like you," I said, turning to look into Harrison's eyes. He avoided my gaze. "That's why you weren't invited. Otherwise, you'd have seen the class president riding my wheelchair all over the place." "Yeah, I know." He gripped the steering wheel and said, "I know the class president's Omega came to see you. You were asleep, and they told me not to tell you." I responded with a soft, "Oh." To be honest, Harrison, I looked ahead at the road, not sure if I was sighing or just reflecting. I say I hate you a lot, but I don't think I ever hated you that much. We basically grew up together, but at some point, seeing you just makes me uncomfortable. There's this unexplained anger in my stomach, like you did something wrong to me. Whenever I see you, I reflexively frown, close my eyes, and try to get as far away from you as possible. I don't understand why, because you haven't really done anything wrong. I thought for a moment, then corrected myself, you really haven't done anything wrong. You've always treated me well, except for the whole marriage thing. Only then did Harrison say, "But if it started wrong, then it's just wrong." He thought being good to me would change my mind, but looking back, it all felt like an attempt at redemption. But what exactly was the sin? I went on, "Not long ago, the doctor told me maybe neither of us did anything wrong. I just have a physiological aversion to you. Maybe after differentiating into an Omega at 16, I suddenly felt like a watermelon forced into a mold. Seeing you differentiate into an alpha and get engaged to me, I just started disliking you. After differentiation, I realized my parents' love wasn't so broad after all. Their love for me was limited to one shell, my Omega identity. They always thought Omegas were weak and helpless, only able to survive by depending on others. To teach me dependency, they broke me from a seedling into a daughter vine. Because I saw a shadow of oppression in Harrison, my body reacted before I did, pushing me away from the source of pain. Even though we were once friends, that didn't stop me from growing to really dislike him later. Harrison looked up as the light turned green, eased off the brake, and the car moved forward. He sighed softly, "So that's how it is." Guilt welled up inside me, and I didn't know what to say. If I apologized for neglecting him all these years, then my own suffering wasn't fake. Years of upbringing taught me not to hurt others, but life also taught me to learn to love myself. Harrison spoke again, "Galen, stop biting your lip. Listen to me. Thanks for telling me the truth. I used to think maybe I really hurt you without realizing it, that's why you hated me so much. Now I know I never did anything to make you sad. That's good." He turned his face away and hurriedly wiped a tear. "Sorry. I still said it." Harrison shook his head, choking on a laugh. "No need, Galen. We're even now, right?" He understood that a person doesn't really become a watermelon trapped in a shell, they cry, shout, and feel pain. A forcibly grown melon tastes bitter, but you still taste it till the end. I smiled, my voice unintentionally emotional. "Yeah, we're even." He suddenly froze, almost losing control of the steering wheel. "You haven't called me that in a long time." I said, "You haven't called me Galen in a long time either. So that's even too." Back and forth, it felt like we were quietly stabbing each other in the back, hurting but unwilling to let go. "Watch the road. Let's go home first." If Harrison was like this, maybe life wasn't impossible. But he didn't take me home. Instead, he parked in a brightly lit lot. I was a little sleepy and didn't notice where we passed. When he pulled the handbrake, I woke a bit and looked at him, confused. He was slumped over the steering wheel, seeming to bear some pain. After a long silence, Harrison raised his reddened eyes to me. His hands trembled as he forced a relaxed breath. He nodded toward the glove compartment and said, "Open it, I have a surprise for you." I saw hesitation in his eyes. My body felt off, like a balloon pumped with adrenaline. I opened the compartment and pulled out a document. It was a divorce agreement. Flipping to the last page, Harrison had already signed it. 9. My chest heaved violently as I asked him, "What is this?" I must have sounded stupid. Harrison said, "It's the freedom you wanted, Galen. Here's your plane ticket, half an hour from now. It lands at Grandma's place. Before she passed, she left you a home. Galen, remember what you said, you have to come back home." I held the papers, laughing and crying at the same time. Why couldn't I stop crying these days? My mom and the others won't agree. You know I love them, but it hurts so much. If I divorce without caring about them, it'll only make things worse for everyone. Harrison picked up his phone from the console and lit up the screen. There was a call in progress, already 30 minutes long. The label said "mother-in-law," and the call wasn't muted. On the other end, two sets of parents covered their mouths silently, no one said a word. That silence was a farewell. Harrison joked, "If they don't speak, that means they agreed, right?" My wide eyes shimmered with tears and his blurred figure. "We still haven't settled one thing." He wiped the sweat from my forehead with a handkerchief, calming me down. "You differentiated again." I didn't know anything. When you were hospitalized, I went home once to get your clothes, and I accidentally found the indoor security cameras we'd forgotten about. Luckily, the storage had enough space. I edited that 6-month footage into a 1-hour sped-up video and showed it to my parents before your reunion. Sorry, I didn't get your permission. When Harrison brought the USB and laptop, everyone was puzzled. But soon, they understood. In that narrow screen, 5 people saw an Omega who gritted his teeth through the differentiation fever, like a sponge soaked with endless sweat and tears. One day, he he started hurting himself. At first, biting his own teeth, later, sticks and knives, finally, a rope tightened around his neck. The video lasted an hour. No one remembers who started crying first. After a long silence, a bearded, dark-circled Harrison knelt before Grace, begging for this divorce agreement. She came out of the study quickly, holding the worn, well-thumbed papers. It seemed prepared early that morning, obviously touched many times. Harrison suddenly thought, everyone seemed to know it shouldn't be like this. So how did it come to this? I softly said, delete it when you get back. I looked too ugly. Harrison replied, keep it until you come back yourself to delete it, okay? I forced a bitter smile and grabbed his arm. Do you know what I was just thinking? I finally convinced myself that living with you isn't impossible, and you hand me this. Are you reminding me not to forget why I started? The hope I nearly lost suddenly sparked again. Harrison surely knew I'd been acting out the divorce alone all along. If he ever signed the papers, I would rush to freedom without hesitation. Maybe we were fated to be connected but never meant to be together. He only said, I know. But I don't want to trap you. If you're unhappy, none of us will be happy. Maybe this is where it ends, Galen. Take care of your wound, remember to get a follow-up. I'm leaving you some money to hire a nanny or a helper, the butler will help set it up for you. From now on, you'll live alone. Don't drink ice water secretly, and don't eat so much fruit and snacks at once. Take care of yourself. Galen, he finally touched my face. I still want to ask you one question. I didn't refuse, okay. If we both grow up well, you study painting and have many friends, maybe I'm one of them, would there be a chance for us to be together then? Would you like me? For a moment, I gently removed his hand and opened the car door. Limping but determined, I held the file with my documents and walked step by step toward the airport entrance. After a while, I looked back. He was still standing there. We locked eyes, speechless and choked. Then I walked away and never saw him again. Galen never answered that last question. But his glance back seemed to say it all. 10. At 27, Casper reclaimed the name Galen. True to his name, like a bird returning south, he flew back to his old nest. He chose not to go back to university, instead opening a flower shop. The person who once found flowers dull now smiled quietly at the blossoms. He painted those flowers and posted them on social media, gradually gaining many followers. Fans called him Little Gardener or Little Painter and teased him, all right, main account holder, say goodbye to your flower shop and paintings, but remember to leave 20,000 yuan. Every time he read the comments, he laughed, and so did the few employees he hired. However, his hands still had problems, sometimes numb and painful, sometimes unable to move, and he never stopped taking medicine. But he never complained again. Many years later, Harrison and both sets of parents secretly visited him again. They learned that he'd moved the shop and nobody knew where it went. Through his online account, they found out Galen had met a master of traditional Chinese painting and was now traveling with his mentor, painting beautiful landscapes. Galen never stopped painting on the road. Grace's hair had gone gray too quickly. When she heard Galen had flown away again, she said nothing and, with Logan and others, took a good look at the old flower shop site. They hadn't stayed long when the new shop owner hurried over and asked, "Are you family of Galen?" They hesitated but nodded. The owner handed them an envelope and went back to work. Grace eagerly opened it to find a photo. Galen's gland nodules on his neck were completely gone. He tugged his collar and defiantly flashed a peace sign at the camera. Below it was a message. My life isn't perfect, I have no powerful backing, no easy path, but I'm doing just fine. On the way home, they bought a square watermelon and each took a bite. Grace commented, "Not very sweet." Logan said, "I think it's sweet. Even the watermelon inside the rind is sweet." Harrison sighed and said, "But originally, the oval watermelons are sweet on their own. Why do we put a shell on a watermelon just for looks and so-called protection?" No doubt, plastic molds shield watermelons from wind, rain, and pests while they grow. But once the melon touches the mold's edge, that protective love becomes the source of pain. People are the same. Only very few realize it. Extra chapter. After a nap, Harrison found himself back at 17. He was dozing at his desk, and opposite him, Galen was also leaning over the table. The numb, aching feeling in his arm quickly reminded him that this was real. But he didn't do anything, just quietly watched Galen for a long time. Harrison recalled that the day he realized he loved Galen was also such an afternoon. When the Omega couldn't sleep peacefully and his pheromones drifted everywhere, Harrison would slowly release his own scent like a territorial wolf, wrapping Galen's pheromones carefully. At least within that small space, Galen was free and safe. However, this afternoon was different. Harrison had no pheromones, he had become a beta. Or rather, this was a parallel world without the ABO secondary gender system. When Galen woke up, a paper was stuck to his face. He puffed out his cheeks and blew it off in one breath, leaving 2 lines of poetry imprinted on his skin. Harrison stared at Galen's fluffy hair, round like a shiny chestnut, and his hand itched to reach out. Before he could touch him, Galen grabbed his hand and called out, "Brother Harrison, I want to eat fruit." Harrison chuckled, "It's okay to call me Harrison, but Brother Harrison, you're being a little much." "What can I say? I can still make a man pay me 300,000 with just 2 sentences. He pulled a sly smile and asked, "Guess what that is?" Harrison took it and said, "What?" Galen answered, "That guy has a nice car." He hit me and sent me flying that far." Galen laughed and fell into Harrison's arms, exuding that youthful energy unique to young men. Harrison caught the scent of orange-scented laundry detergent, fresh and sweet. Suddenly, Harrison hugged him tightly and said, "Don't worry. When you get sent flying that far, I'll definitely inherit your 300,000. Well, that was something. Galen snapped his head up and bared his teeth at him. "There's a comic convention on the highway tonight. Are you going? I'll teach you how to hit the jackpot. Just cosplay as a speed bump to scare the big trucks." Harrison playfully teased his face, "Tell my legal team about that." Galen wriggled free and jumped on Harrison's bed, punching and kicking his pillow as if it were Harrison's face. "Harrison, go cut the fruit for me." Harrison sighed helplessly, then obediently left the room. When he opened the door, the world outside was completely blank. Harrison seemed to understand something. He turned back to look closely at Galen. This Galen hadn't changed his name to Casper. His notebook still showed the target art school for his entrance exam. Though it was Harrison's bedroom, Galen acted as if he had grown used to this place for many years, showing no discomfort. Harrison held the doorknob and slowly turned away. Galen lay on the bed scrolling through his phone, his toes curled upward. Out of the corner of his eye, Harrison heard Galen mumble grumpily, "If you don't come cut the fruit, do I have to ask you? I'm not kissing you." After a long quiet moment, Harrison asked, "Are you happy, Galen?" Galen looked at him strangely and said, "What nonsense are you talking about? I'm unhappy if you don't cut the fruit." "All right." Harrison understood. He fully grasped the answer to that question in this dream. Not a guess, but a real-life truth. He lifted his leg and walked into the void, crossed a long road, and woke up again in a familiar black and white room. It was the 10th year since Galen left. The 10th year since their lifetime bond was broken. The place had grown quiet, aside from his parents, few visited anymore. Grace had been sick for a long time and always thought Galen was heartless. She knew she might be wrong, but as a parent, how could she keep holding a grudge and refuse to welcome her child home? Logan often wondered if his experience as an elder was outdated. Was their old belief that alphas handle the outside world and omegas take care of the home really wrong? His own health wasn't great either. Since Galen left, he suffered insomnia, waking every night thinking of Galen as a boy. The suddenly strict upbringing confused and saddened Galen for a long time. He often made mistakes, was bad at some subjects, picky about food, and joined the art class without permission. Their discipline escalated from verbal warnings to corporal punishment, then to confinement. Logan thought it was for Galen's own good, so he didn't intervene much. Now, lying in a guest room made from a storage closet, he saw the locked, nailed-down curtains blocking out the light and suffocating the room. Only then did he understand where Galen's later fear of the dark came from. Logan broke down and went to find Grace. She sat in front of Galen's window, dazed, clutching a stack of photos. Like a wooden doll, she didn't move. Because of Harrison, his family kept in touch with theirs. His parents had complained about Galen being selfish, never considering others, and ruining two families. But Harrison only said, he should have left long ago. I wronged him by trapping him for 10 years. Then, without his permission, I let you see his most painful and ugly moments. I had to do something. After all, it's just two sets of parents, who can't handle that? Thinking of the Omega screaming and harming himself, they said no more. Life went on, cold and quiet.